Hello, folks. Hello. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I'm leecamp. And big show for you today. I don't know if I've ever said that before, but big show for you today. We're gonna dig into Kamala Harris's first interview. I think it's the only one she's done since she was unceremoniously. No, I guess it was actually ceremoniously handed the Democratic nomination for president with 0 votes cast for her to be the Democratic nominee for president. Also, 0 votes were ever cast for her to be vice president. That's because that's how our system works. So she is very good at getting positions with 0 votes cast for that position. We're gonna dig into what was shown in the CNN interview. And you know, I always feel the need to throw this in there because I don't know. Some of you may not be working with a fully functional brain stem or something. That me criticizing Kamala Harris does not mean I love Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a horrific, horrible, horrible human being. But see, when you're in a waning empire, it vomits up these type of people, and you can criticize both of them because they're both corporate shit shows. And so we're going to be getting into all that. And yes, for those of you who want to know why there's no Eleanor and you're only here for the Eleanor Goldfield portion of the show, sorry, she is gone for a few more days. She will be back. She'll be on the show probably next Friday, if not, if she's not on Thursday or whatever, but she'll be on soon. Anyway, I apologize. Please don't hang up on me. I still love you, okay? But before we get to the Kamala Harris interview, let's talk about what's just happened in Venezuela. Just crazy coincidence. I know this is going to blow your mind, the coincidence of this. The U.S. has just tried to coup Venezuela yet again. They do it every couple of years, you know. I mean, they do it every couple of months. It just depends on what style it takes. Is it going to be 6 random mercenaries on a raft? Is it going to be a concert led by Richard Branson? Is it going to be a random dude named Guaido who's suddenly called the president? You never know. And that's what's fun with their attempts to coup Venezuela. You never know how they're going to do it. Anyway, the U.S. Maduro just won the election. The U.S. tried to create a coup. Didn't work, didn't go well for the U.S., as many of the past coup attempts have not gone well in Venezuela for the U.S. And total coincidence, unrelated, 100% unrelated, Venezuela is seeing a terrorist attack on their electric system, which has resulted in a lot of power failure across the entire country. This is from Orinoco Tribune. A terrorist attack against the national electric system has been reported in Venezuela, resulting in a failure in the electrical services of Caracas and several cities across the country, according to reports in the evening. So this one, it started in August 27th, but we're on August 30th, and there's still more reports of ongoing power outages in Venezuela. And again, completely unrelated to the fact that the U.S. is trying to coup them right now, and they feel this is a sensitive time for Venezuela because they've just had an election, and unrelated to the U.S. And so it's just a relief that we can just say this has nothing to do with the U.S. Also, Maduro has said he has asked the Venezuelan people to have nerves of steel in the face of the new sabotage of the national electric system. The head of state, through a message on the social network Telegram, another coincidence that France has arrested the CEO of Telegram, and the U.S. and France and other U.S. marionette puppets despise Telegram and want it to shut down. Completely unrelated to the fact that it allows people like Nicolas Maduro to speak to his people, despite there being power outages. Completely unrelated to the fact that many people who have set up protests against Israel's genocide in Gaza, many of them coordinate and communicate on Telegram because it is largely uncensored and unaccountable to U.S. Western interests. Completely unrelated that Maduro sent out this message on Telegram. He said, as always, I am with the people and I'm at the forefront of the situation facing this criminal attack against the national electric system. Now, by the way, thank you, 11th Hour, for the donation. Yes, solidarity. Feel free, everybody, to throw in a couple of dollars in the super chat to keep this show going. I'll try and highlight all the super chats that I can, or all the ones that I noticed. But here's the thing: is whether you're one of these neocons, and it's neocon term doesn't really mean anything anymore because the so-called liberal side of our political establishment, they're also neocons, right? What war are they against? Back during the Bush years, you had a certain faction of the neoliberal wing that said, you know, invading Iraq is a bit much, etc., blah, blah, blah. Nowadays, what is it that the neoliberals are opposed to that the neocons want? In fact, there's certain things the neocons don't want, certain invasions the neocons don't want that the neoliberals do. Anyway, because they're all basically pro-war, so it's all bullshit. But whether you hate Venezuela for whatever reason, whether you're just like, oh, I just want those people, I wish there was someone else in power in Venezuela. Even if that were the case, shouldn't you not want people to suffer through power outages, which do kill people, right? People in hospitals, etc., die from power outages all the time. So shouldn't you kind of be with the people of Venezuela no matter who their president is? I don't like their president, so I'm going to celebrate the fact that they don't have power and that they're suffering. And this is also the nonsense behind our economic sanctions, our economic war against Venezuela is, even if you don't like their president, even if you wanted to believe the propaganda that he lost the election, which he didn't, but even if you're kind of dumb enough to believe that, still, why would you want economic sanctions that kill poor people? Like 100,000 poor people have died in Venezuela. I mean, because that's in economic war, the people that die most commonly are the poor, the elderly, babies, right? Those children, small children, those are the ones who generally die from economic war. So even if you were like, oh, I hate Maduro, I hope a random baby in Venezuela dies. Yay! Awesome. What? What's the matter with you? What are you talking about? So anyway, wanted to bring you that. I'll also bring you this before we get into the Kamala Harris interview. Oh, and by the way, I should also mention that later I'm going to bring you a segment on how the NED, the National Endowment for Democracy, which is a CIA cutout, they are melting down right now. Thanks to the gray zone. They are just shit not going well at the NED. I'm going to bring you that after the Kamala Harris interview. So please click thumbs up and all that good stuff. But let me just bring you this. This is, I didn't realize this would be like a daily segment. I didn't know I'd be doing a daily segment on who is getting arrested today for speaking out against Israel's genocide. But it has become a daily thing, you know. First, one segment on Richard Medhurst, a segment on Scott Ritter, although his is also connected to being against the proxy war in Ukraine. Segment on that activist yesterday, Sarah Wilkinson, who was arrested in the UK for peaceful activism against genocide. And here is today's in the United States. Who are they arresting now? On August 28th, FBI and DHS officers detained and interrogated Professor Danny Shaw at Chicago's O'Hare Airport after he returned from a Free Palestine Film Festival in London. You're not allowed to go to film festivals anymore. That is terrorism, apparently. According to Shaw, agents from the FBI's Chicago field office grilled him for 3 hours about his Palestine solidarity activism, demanded to know the name of his contacts and any organizations he's worked with, and denied him the right to speak with a lawyer because we don't have that right, you know? Of course not. Of course, no, you don't have any right to a lawyer. Who told you that? When he refused to answer questions, he was told he would not be released until he complied. See, Professor Danny Shaw made the mistake of thinking he had some sort of rights, such as the right to remain silent. Where did I hear that? Oh, 900 billion episodes of Law and Order. That's right. You have the right to remain silent. 900 billion episodes of every cop show that's ever existed in the U.S., which is all of the TV shows. You have the right to remain silent. I had forgotten where I'd heard that, but now it's sounding familiar. Apparently, no. Apparently, they can say to you, hey, if you remain silent, we will never let you go. Ever? Really? Ever? He said the agent seized his cell phone, computer, notebooks, other belongings, and asked hundreds of questions about his work and personal life. Shaw was fired by, this is in April, this is not yesterday. Shaw was fired by John Jay College of Criminal Justice back in April following a coordinated Israel lobby pressure campaign. So he'd already lost his job due to being against the genocide, in which comments he made at a rally against Israel's Gaza genocide were distorted to falsely paint him as anti-Semitic. Oh, really? Where have we heard that before? People being falsely called anti-Semitic for being against a genocide. That sounds a little familiar. Okay. So that's today's segment of Who Are They Arresting Now for Freedom of Speech? Okay, let's get into this Kamala Harris interview. She has basically refused to do almost any interviews. She is just going on vibes. Apparently, we're all just expected to vote for her despite her having essentially zero policies. There's very little that she's come out with of things she's going to do. The entire DNC convention went through, and the platform planks were few and far between. What is it you stand for? Just vibes. Just good vibes, man. Awesome, daddy-o. And much of what she claims to stand for, she's flip-flopped on. Now, I played a video for you yesterday of people being asked, supporters of hers being asked, what's the favorite thing she's done that she's accomplished? You know, what is the number one thing she's accomplished that you're a fan of? And they couldn't actually answer the question. Now, I would argue Trump supporters also can't answer the question. And if they were asked the question, they probably actually would answer it. It just wouldn't be true. They'd go, he helped the working man. Oh, did he? Did he? Come on now. Really? So, all right. Let's play some good old-fashioned clips. Oh, yeah, I want to start with the Kamala Harris on fracking first.
When you were in Congress, you supported the Green New Deal. And
okay. Sorry, she said when you were in Congress, you supported the Green New Deal.
And in 2019, you said, quote, there is no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. Fracking, as you know, is a pretty big issue, particularly in your must-win state of Pennsylvania.
Sure.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020 that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
So here's the thing. If I were asked that question, you remember you said you wanted to ban fracking. Do you still believe that? No, I would not ban fracking. I'm opposed banning fracking. I would feel like, just from a cringe level, I would feel then obligated to go, I have switched my view because instead she just goes, nope, not doing it. What about how you said you were gonna do it? What about that part of your history?
In 2019, I believe, at a town hall, you said you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes. So it changed in that campaign?
In 2020, I made very clear where I stand. We are in 2024, and I've not changed that position, nor will I going forward. I kept my word, and I will keep my word.
Well, you didn't keep all your words. In 2019, you said you were for banning fracking. In 2020, you claim by that point you had switched. Now, why would it switch between 2019 and 2020? Oh, maybe she was running a primary, and at first she was speaking to, in the primary, you're speaking a little more to the left wing of the Democratic Party. Now, the Democratic Party is not left wing, but some left wingers, people legitimately who have left wing stances, have been beguiled, have been tricked, befuddled, befooled by the Democratic Party and think it's left wing. So there are left wingers in the Democratic Party who don't understand that it's a far right neo fascist shit show. So she was trying to speak to some people who are slightly more left, who, you know, think that if we continue to use fossil fuels, we're all dead, that kind of thing. You know, call them crazy, hashtag science. There's also the fact that fracking uses just a crazy amount of fresh water and contaminates it. It doesn't like use the fresh water and then the fresh water goes into the ground and we can use it later. It uses fresh water and fills it with all kinds of cancerous contaminants, many of which the fracking companies will not even reveal what they are. It's called the Halliburton loophole. They get to cover up what are the cancer-causing agents they're putting into this water that they then pump into our ground that then causes a massive number of earthquakes in areas, many of which never had earthquakes or didn't have many. Now they're just common. Fracking's horrific and just destroys the environment and destroys our world. There's also all kinds of methane leaks from fracking, CO2 leaks. It's just disgusting, revolting, but it has allowed the United States to have more oil than the United States ever imagined we'd have, more fossil fuels. So therefore, it has allowed us greater power on the world stage as we drive off an ecological cliff. And she wants you to know she very much supports driving off that ecological cliff. And the reason for this is because one of the biggest swing states, one of the most important states right now is Pennsylvania, where fracking is hugely popular. And she is all for it now. Suddenly, Kamala loves fracking. I love how she doesn't even feel the need to explain. Like, the CNN interview is trying to be like, basically, can you explain why you shifted? And she just goes, nope, 2020, I said, not going to ban it, and I'm not banning it, not doing it.
What made you change that position at the time?
Well, let's be clear. My values have not changed. I believe it is very important.
It seems like if you said you wanted to ban fracking and then you said you were not going to ban fracking, that does sound like on that topic, the values must have changed a little bit. Because if the value was, I want to ban fracking because it's harmful to the environment and we're killing our ability to have a future on this planet, it seems like that value might have slightly been diluted by 2020. So I think your values have changed to some degree.
Important that we take seriously what we must do to guard against what is a clear crisis in terms of the climate.
That if you stood by that, seems like you'd be opposed to fracking, but you just said you're for fracking.
And to do that, we can do what we have accomplished thus far. The Inflation Reduction Act, what we have done to invest, by my calculation, over probably $1 trillion over the next 10 years, investing in a clean energy economy. What we've already done.
So these are all buzzwords. The clean energy economy doesn't really mean anything. Much of what they're calling clean energy economy is still basically oil and coal. It's just that the logos are green. They paint each piece of coal green before they ship it to wherever it's going to be burned. The oil tanks have a little green hat on it, like a leprechaun hat on top of the oil barrels. So it's the green energy economy. It doesn't mean anything. You can't support fracking and be for green energy. And I mean, it's crazy gaslighting. Hey, it actually is more applicable with this topic than most. It's just crazy gaslighting. It's crazy lies. It's crazy manipulation. She knows it, and that's why she can't. That's why she's hemming and hawing all over this answer, is because she doesn't support environmental policies that are good for us long term. They just having a lot of oil and selling a lot of oil is good for the oil companies, A, and B, good for America in order to have hegemonic power. We need that petrodollar to keep pumping. So that's what it's good for.
Done creating over 300,000 new clean energy jobs. That tells me, from my experience as vice president.
And in case you guys need, I know I say it a lot, but I understand some of you do not watch every episode and stuff. I'm always fascinated by we're going to bring more jobs. We're going to, yay. And someone says, well, I'm going to bring even more jobs than that guy over there. And there's no one who says, like, what if we created a better system that wasn't just wage slavery? What if we did that? No, that is not allowed on the stage. That's not allowed anywhere near the stage. That guy is so far from the stage. He's in another country. He's out on an island somewhere. You can't, you may not. It is the third rail of politics to ever question wage slavery. So we have to start at the assumption that you will be a slave to a job you hate for most people. If you have a job you like, then God bless you. Good for you, but you are the rare thing in this world. And so we have to start from the starting point, which is you are just going to have a job you hate your whole life, and you're going to give most of your existence to it, and it's going to suck your soul out. And that's never mentioned. That's just basic. That's ground level. And then and then everything said by these candidates, everything just works from there. I'm going to bring back more of the wage slavery. Anyway.
President, we can do it without banning fracking. In fact, Dana, excuse me.
She hasn't said why we need fracking. Like, if you're going to defend this horrific practice, explain to people why they need it, why you need it. Because the reason is she can't actually explain why they need it, which is to make big oil happy and to make the petrodollar happy.
I cast the tie-breaking vote that actually increased leases for fracking.
Yeah.
Did you catch that? She is bragging. Do you understand? These two parties are the fucking same. She is bragging about being the tie-breaking vote. So it was her vote. It was all came down to her to increase fracking drilling. By increasing leasing to big oil companies and fracking companies, you're increasing drilling. So she cast the vote that made it so that there was more leases for fracking to continue. And Biden, I've brought you this several times, Biden, under the Biden administration, which I think she was a part of maybe, under the Biden administration, more leasing for oil companies on federal lands, on these lands we're trying to protect, on the little bit of the environment we have left, than under Trump. And doesn't mean Trump wasn't trying to. So I want to make that clear for all the people out there that criticize Kamala Harris and then just leave Trump out of the equation. No, Trump very much wanted to increase all the oil pumping, but he put a lot of idiots in various places, and many of them just were not as good at exploiting our world, because they're numbskulls. But it's all sociopaths, but some are, smart sociopaths and dumb sociopaths. Man, it would suck to be a dumb sociopath. It's like, because you don't care about human beings at all, so you're all set up to exploit this world just very easily, but unfortunately you're dumb. Anyway, I mean, I guess that describes so many people. Donald Trump. But so more leasing on federal land, more oil pumped under Biden than Trump. And here she is bragging about how she made sure there was more fracking than ever before.
Vice President. So I'm very clear about where I stand.
And was there some policy or scientific data that you saw that you said, oh, okay, I get it now?
what I have seen is that we
She keeps asking the same question because this is the fourth time I think that Dana Bash has asked this question. What changed? Why did you change your opinion? And Kamala Harris has not answered it.
we can grow and we can increase a thriving clean energy economy without banning fracking.
All she said was, yeah, things. Okay, so that was the insane mumbo jumbo on fracking. Let's now jump to what Kamala Harris would do on day one. By the way, folks, please, if you want to support the show, and we are fighting all kinds of censorship and suppression, but if you want to support this show and see it keep going, please consider becoming a member at leecamp.net or throwing a couple bucks in the super chat. All right, what would Kamala Harris do on day one? God, I'd love to know that.
Hear what your plans are. If you are elected, what would you do on day one in the White House?
Well, there are a number of things. I will tell you, first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to.
Before she answers, I want to see what you think. Now, imagine all the issues in the world. Imagine what's going on right now. There's a genocide in Gaza. 40.5 thousand people murdered, and that doesn't count disease and hunger. There's a catastrophic climate crisis we're facing. There's a proxy war in Ukraine where hundreds of thousands have died to the point that they've basically killed their entire through the war. And the U.S. efforts to create this proxy war, Ukraine has lost almost all the normal fighting age males in the society, so that now they have the average age of military people in Ukraine is over 45 because all the young men are dead. Just imagine all of the things. Day one, what are you going to do? Oh my God. And then, of course, there's all the stuff you could do for average Americans. Let's hear. Do you think it's going to be genocide? She's going to stop the genocide?
Support and strengthen the middle class.
Support and strengthen the middle class. That's super vague. And by the way, it also means fuck poor people. What are you going to do on day one? Well, I only care about the middle class. Why do they always only care about the middle class? Because those are the ones that more often vote. Middle class, first of all, the rich is a smaller segment of society. So they run things, but you're not going to speak to them because they're a smaller segment, top 10% or something. So you got a small segment. Then you have a massive group of Americans that consider themselves middle class, whether they are or not. I mean, we've kind of destroyed much of the middle class. But then you have a massive amount of Americans who are poor or working poor, and they apparently don't matter to Kamala Harris and these people. And the reason is because poor people are less likely to vote for several reasons. One of them being that many of them don't have transportation to the voting booths. Many of them, I know this is going to sound crazy, have jobs that they go to, because in a lot of countries, the voting day it's a day off work. Not in the U.S. Just good luck getting there. Good luck making it to the polls. So many poor people are working 1, 2, 3 jobs, maybe kids as well. Good luck getting the hour to go stand in line at the ballot box. And there's other reasons as well that the poor people are less likely to vote. But so that's why she apparently day one only cares about the middle class.
Strengthen the middle class. When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that
could you imagine you're on the cusp of possibly being what they call the leader of the free world. We're the largest prison state in the world, actually. So not really the leader of the free world. If you're going to be the leader of the free world, you can't be overseeing the largest prison state in the I'm with you, man. if you shouldn't have the largest prison in the world, maybe, to be the leader of the free world. Never mind. Never mind. But imagine you're at the cusp of being president of the United States. You're asked what your number one priority is, and you go, first you say middle class, and then you go, I look at the dreams and the hopes of. She sounds like someone on LSD. Like it. How is it not? Yeah, the fucking genocide. How is it not? Stop the proxy war. How is it not? Stop the tens of thousands of bombs the U.S. drops every year. How is it not stop people from dying from unclean water, which the estimates are would cost $10 billion every year to give the entire world clean water? The number one killer of human beings across this world is unclean water. And we could end that for $10 billion, which, yeah, it might be a lot for me and you. Guess what? It is nothing to our Pentagon. It is nothing to our government. So she could, in one sentence, say, you know what? I'm going to save millions upon millions of lives. Also, the top people who die from unclean water, again, children and infirmed people, but mainly children. So I'm going to save millions upon millions of lives by giving everyone clean water. Day one, done. Day one, that's my priority. Nope. Instead, she's going to tell a little riddle about hopes and dreams and aspirations. To me, that's someone saying, yeah, you know what? I don't want to answer this question because I don't actually care.
People are ready for a new way forward, in a way that generations of Americans have been fueled by hope and by optimism. I think, sadly,
the hope and change. Remember? How'd that go under Obama?
In the last decade, we have had in the former president someone who has really been pushing an agenda and an environment that is about diminishing the character and the strength of who we are as Americans, really dividing our nation. And
I think this sounds a little like a haiku or something she's speaking in. What? Yeah, Trump's divisive. That is true, but also you have all the same policies as him. So often people like to vote for someone with different policies than the other person. But no, you're not going to give any policies at all because you have all the same policies as him. So we'll just talk about hope and dreams and aspirations, and I'm not actually going to say anything. Certainly won't talk about the millions of people dying around the world that we could save with the swipe of a pen. Certainly not going to discuss that. Thank you, Ecuadorian Taco, for the super chat donation. Thank you, and solidarity. Okay, I'm skipping to part two here because I can't do hopes and dreams and aspirations and nonsense anymore for the moment. So let's go to Harris being asked about immigration. I'm sure this is going to be an excellent answer. This is gonna just because she's the polar opposite of Trump, right? Polar opposite.
In southern countries and
northern part of Central America.
The northern part of Central America that deals with, that affects the southern border of the U.S. Mm-hmm. During the Biden-Harris administration, there were record numbers of illegal border crossings. Why did the Biden-Harris administration wait 3.5 years to implement sweeping asylum restrictions?
Well, first of all,
think about how that question's phrased. That's CNN just asked her, why aren't you more horrific to immigrants? Why is it taking you so long to be more horrific to immigrants? Now, consider the fact that under Biden, the U.S. has deported more immigrants than Donald Trump. Yet again, as with the fracking leases, this doesn't mean Trump wasn't trying to deport and harm as many immigrants as possible. Of course he was, but he was just shittier at it, or the people he put in place were just shittier at it. So under Biden, you actually have more immigrants deported than under Donald Trump. And every side is trying to deny this. The Trump people don't like this truth that it's more people are deported, because then it sounds like, oh, Biden is hard on immigrants. And the Democrats don't like it because even though they've completely changed all their stances on immigration to be as horrifically anti-immigrant and farther right-wing than Trump almost, they don't want numbers showing they deported more people than Trump. That looks a little bad. But the Democrats several years ago used to talk about how they cared about immigrants. They used to say, we are a nation of immigrants. They used to say these things. Instead, they've now become, we need to give more guns to the people on the borders to stop those brown folks from coming in. That's the Democrats now. Absolutely horrific policies. And we could get into the debate over borders for the next 3 hours, but let's remember that a couple of quick things. Borders they make no sense. They're in our mind. I mean, the idea that, someone put a line there and the guy on the other side of it is less equal than me and I deserve better because I was born 12 feet this way and he deserves to die because he was born 12 feet that way. It's just nonsense. It's a nationalistic, jingoistic bullshit nonsense. But on top of that, let's remember that borders are very selective as to who they keep out. They, more often than not, almost always, keep out poor people because the country trying to keep people out is trying to keep out poor people. Rich people rarely have trouble with borders. If you're a rich Mexican, you can fly to the United States and not have a real issue with borders. It is a lot easier. Yes, it's not 100%, but borders are designed largely to keep out poor people. And then there's the fact that, of course, there's millions of immigrants in the United States that are working for all of these corporations, and the corporations love them because they can treat them like dog shit, and it's far easier to abuse, harass, harangue, wage theft immigrants that are nervous about their ability to stay in the country than it is for non-immigrants. So all these corporations that technically run our government, rule our government, many of them love these immigrants. So it's so nonsense in so many different ways. What was the one other thing I was going to say? And also the United States, through our entire history, several hundred years, the United States has had about 10 to 15% immigrants in our population at any given time. They just used to be different people, right? For a while, it was Irish and Italian, and now most of what they're talking about is from Latin America. And those immigrants back 100 years ago were hated equally, right? Oh, the goddamn Irish, goddamn Italians, like all that bullshit. And it's all in our heads. It's all just hatred. And here she is spouting that hatred, saying, we got to stop those immigrants. Man, did we do a good job of stopping those immigrants? And CNN's asking her, why didn't you stop those immigrants more?
Well, the root causes work that I did as vice president, that I was asked to do by the president, has actually resulted in a number of benefits, including historic investments by American businesses in that region. The number of immigrants coming from that region has actually reduced since we began that work.
You remember famously one of Kamala Harris's things is she went, I don't know where she was speaking, but she was speaking about Latin Americans wanting to come to the United States. Most of them are coming from countries the U.S. has destroyed or impoverished. And her answer to immigration was, don't come. She just said, if you're thinking of coming to the U.S., don't come. Really? I thought we were, give us your poor, your tired, your huddled masses. We care for everyone. Done with that? Oh, yeah, we're done with that.
But I will say this, that Joe Biden and I and our administration worked with members of the United States Congress on an immigration issue that is very significant to the American people and to our security, which is the border. And through bipartisan work, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, a bill was crafted, which we supported, which I support. And Donald Trump got word of this bill that would have contributed to securing our border, and because he believes that it would not have helped him politically, he told his folks in Congress, don't put it forward. He killed the bill.
Okay, so what is she really saying if you actually break it down? She's saying that she has the same stance on immigrants as Republicans, as Donald Trump, and the only reason they use the term securing the border, that means that's a nice little euphemism for destroying lives and deporting as many as you can. But she's saying I have the same stance as Donald Trump because she's right wing. So are most Democrats in government. So I have the same stance as Donald Trump, same stance as Republicans, and we were going to pass a bill that would have armed, given money and more men. She talks in a moment, I probably won't play it though, of adding 1,500 more Border Patrol agents. So more militarized, more fascist, more guns, more money, all of this stuff Trump would love. And the reason Trump got the bill crushed is because it would look bad for him that the Democrats were the ones creating the fascist environment at the border and not him. And she's proud of this. She's saying, damn, Trump wouldn't let me create more fascism at the border. Oh, why I oughta. And by the way, this is even the liberal outlet Vox, which, is largely a Kamala Harris supporter and everything. They put out an article recently about Kamala Harris's massive shift on immigration, but as well as the Democratic Party's massive shift on immigration. They say it was at full display at the DNC. Democrats all hate immigrants now as much as Republicans do. So good to see. And then Vox, being a neoliberal outlet, has questions like, why is the left holding back its ire? Well, first of all, you're not talking about the real left. You're talking about liberals who believe all this propaganda. And also, much of the left has been destroyed. There's not a large left in the United States left. And the ones that remain are being arrested right now by the FBI for supporting Palestine. Anyway, so that's even from liberal outlet Vox. All right, let's go back to this for a minute.
A border security bill that would have put 1,500 more agents on the border. And let me tell you something. The Border Patrol endorsed the bill.
There it is. Border Patrol, the fist of the fascist state on the border, supports the bill that Kamala Harris and Biden wanted to get through. So are you starting to get it? All these people have the same stance on this thing. The Border Patrol want to be more fascist. Kamala Harris wants to be more fascist and militarized. Joe Biden wants it to be more fascist and militarized. John Trump wants it to be more fascist and militarized. Republicans wanted to be more fascist and militarized. The only reason the bill didn't go through was because Trump realized it would look bad for him if Biden and Kamala were the ones to give more money and troops to the border. Good. Thank you, Teresa, for the donation. Teresa says, to end on a positive note, tell us something fun you did on a vacation. I went parasailing. It's not actually true. I just wanted to say something that would sound like something someone does on vacation. Okay, I want to play one more clip. This is the last clip from Kamala Harris. Then we're going to get into how the NED, the National Endowment for Democracy, is melting down with multiple people fired thanks to, or losing their jobs, thanks to the gray zone. All right. One more clip. This one about Israel, because Kamala Harris is just awesome on Israel. You know what's great about the topic of Israel, unlike the other topics that I've been mentioning, is she and Donald Trump have completely different views on Israel. Because Trump says, finish the job, kill them all, go ahead, genocide, awesome. Kamala Harris says, go ahead, Israel, finish them all, genocide, I'm sorry. I got that wrong. They have the same view. Yep. So I thought different. No, sorry.
President Biden has tried unsuccessfully
A little fast there, Dana.
to end the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. He's been doing it for months and months, along with you.
There's some good old CNN propaganda. Yeah, Biden's been trying real hard to end this war on Gaza, to end this genocide. He's been trying real hard. He just can't. He wishes he could stop sending tens of thousands of missiles to rain down on children. It's just he's trying. And like Dr. Strangelove, how he doesn't really have control of his hand. It's just like, it's very similar with Joe Biden and the Biden administration. They're like, no, we're not sending any more bombs rain down on. Oh no! And then their hands just life of their own, and they send the missiles over to Israel to bomb children. It's really, he has tried so hard. He's trying so hard.
Would you do anything differently? For example, would you withhold some U.S. weapons shipments to Israel? That's what a lot of people on the progressive left want you to do.
Let me be very clear. I am unequivocal and unwavering in my commitment to Israel's defense.
So no. Would you stop sending missiles to murder innocent people? I want to be clear. No. No. I would continue to send bombs to rain down on Gaza, Gaza is a 25-mile strip of land, and it has received the equivalent of 6 Hiroshima atomic bombs since 11 months ago. Israel has dropped the same amount as 6 Hiroshima atomic bombs on a 25-mile strip of land, killing, if you count disease and famine, hundreds of thousands. And she wouldn't stop that. She's fine with that. No red line there. Also, she uses the euphemism, the propaganda term, Israel can defend itself. If you have essentially unarmed, because comparatively the size of the arms and the technology and everything, Gaza is essentially unarmed. If you have an unarmed strip of land and one of the largest militaries the world has ever known, and the unarmed people are in a little 25-mile cage, and you rain bombs down on them for 11 months, killing 40,000 if you don't count famine and disease. Is that defense? Is that, because I must have a bad definition. I must, my dictionary is not up to date. It's actually from the 1600s. And apparently defense means a whole other thing now.
And its ability to defend itself. And that's not going to change. But let's take a step back. October 7, 1,200 people were massacred.
Many of them by the IDF, but she cannot say that.
Many young people who were simply attending a music festival. Women were horribly raped.
Complete lie. And I've brought to you how most of the people at the music festival that were killed by IDF. Many of those cars, a lot of people that were killed at the music festival were in their cars trying to leave. And those cars, because they had bullets piercing the top of the car, which is not where Hamas was not above them. So if bullets are piercing the tops of the cars, where did those come from? Oh, IDF helicopters, which we know did repeated runs back and forth to the music festival, firing and like runs to go get more ammunition. And those cars were all shredded and buried in an undisclosed location, because that's what you do when you're innocent of something, right? You take the evidence and you shred and bury it. Anyway, and then we get to the grape allegations. I'm not going to say the word. I'm literally not doing it as a joke or to be snarky, but because I think YouTube will completely stop showing this video to anybody if I say the actual word, which is a beautiful thing that we can communicate here. And YouTube and all these platforms are wonderful. You can communicate as long as you don't talk about real issues. As long as you don't talk about, the worst people in World War II, if you know who I'm talking about. As long as you don't talk about the green grape allegations. But anyway, the grape allegations have been completely debunked, and I've brought you play-by-play of all of that, so I'm not going to go through it all again. Kamala Harris has been one of the biggest proponents of lying about that. She has been running around saying over and over all of these, repeating all of these mass grape ideas, and she has never mentioned the actual provable grape that has been done by Israeli soldiers on Palestinians in the torture camps. More and more evidence has been coming out about that. And of course, the Israeli Knesset, the parliament in Israel, I brought you this a few weeks ago. They were actually having a debate as to whether it's okay, whether it's acceptable for IDF and Israeli security forces to essentially grape prisoners as a tactic. And they came down with, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. So a lot of real moral stuff going on from the Israeli Knesset, the Israeli parliament. Thank you, Philip, for the donation. Thank you for supporting the show. Solidarity. So anyway, let's get back to Kamala here, who is just making a wonderful moral point here.
As I said then, I say today, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed.
So then she does what the New York Times does, and it becomes passive voice. Far too many, and also she adds the word innocent in there, as if you consider them guilty, it's fine to murder as many Palestinians as you want. like to throw the word innocent in there. Israel is killing not just everybody they're killing everybody they can discover who's connected to Hamas, but Hamas is the government. So there's plenty of Hamas officials that are not, and people working with Hamas that are not militants. But outside of that, they're killing the entire family. So someone they suspect is with Hamas goes to their home and Israel bombs it and kills the whole family. But then on top of that, because of their AI program, Lavender, because of their AI program, they're just assuming someone's with Hamas if they have multiple cell phones or something, oh, that must mean they're Hamas, which is often not what it means, which is part of the reason they've killed so many journalists as well. But so she wants to say, oh, have died, use the passive voice. Far too many have died. Oh, really? What's the not too many number of innocent people? What's 10,000 would have been all right, but now it's bothering you a little?
And we have got to get a deal done. We were in Doha. We have to get a deal done. This war must end.
In the meantime,
and we must get a deal that is about getting the hostages out.
By the way, hostages, whenever you hear them say hostages, that only means Israeli hostages, right? In Gaza, being held in Gaza. Never means all the hostages that Israel's holding, the 10,000 that Israel's holding, and their prisoners, many of whom they're torturing, many of whom are children or women. Those are not hostages, apparently. That doesn't count. Okay, don't talk about those. Just got to get the hostages out. And of course, they've done borderline nothing to actually get a ceasefire. Also, she might want to mention, in terms of not getting a ceasefire, that Israel has bombed and assassinated the main negotiator of Hamas. The main person that was sitting down with people to come up with a ceasefire deal, Israel murdered him. So does that sound like Israel's looking for a ceasefire? Anyway, I want to get to this NED story, so I'll end with Kamala Harris there. But it's amazing how her so-called stances, many of which she won't even tell people, but they're all the same as the Republicans. They're like, what's different? What is different? It's unbelievable. And going after her, criticizing her justly, rightly on the facts, is not me running around saying I love Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a horrific human being. He is a corporate brand. He's been vomited up by this empire, as has she. And so, no. Instead, I'm rightly criticizing all this bullshit she spouts and standing for the same thing as the most right-wing Americans. To say these parties are the same. They're one party. And we're seeing it again and again and again. Okay. Let me get to this last story here, because it is pretty amazing. And by the way, thank you everybody for being here. I hope if you feel like you gotten 38 cents out of 36 cents? Can't remember. Out of this episode, I hope you will join up at leecamp.net, which will forward you to my locals page. And when you join up, you get my ebooks, both of them. You're going to get 2 ebooks. You get Dangerous Ideas and Bullet Points and Punchlines. Also, thank you, No True Flags. It's 38 cents an episode. $6 a month. Thank you for doing the math, because I didn't want to. You get both my ebooks when you sign up. You also get my comedy special, Laughing All the Way to the Shitstorm, my Zoom comedy special. And you get regular extra segments. Yesterday, I did an extra segment. Was it yesterday? Yesterday I did an extra comedy segment for everybody over at leecamp.net. So I hope you will join up and support this show. Okay. So, I did not cover this at the time. I must I missed it or something. But about a year ago or so, an official at the NED called Gray Zone, called Max Blumenthal and Alex Rubinstein, both of whom I know, called them and wanted to talk to them. And so they recorded her call with them, and it has been an utter catastrophe. So this is the more recent part. An utter catastrophe for the NED. And now the Gray Zone has access to leaked emails from inside National Endowment for Democracy of just what a shitstorm has happened inside the NED for one phone call with Gray Zone. And so let me give you some of the details. The Gray Zone's publication of an embarrassing phone call with the National Endowment for Democracy. And I'll just throw it in. I know most of you know this, but National Endowment, NED, they call it NED. I often say NED, but the kids in the know say NED. They are a CIA cutout. What does cutout mean? It means that initially their job was done by the CIA in order to create coups around the world, but the CIA realized that looks bad, so it became its own entity. That it was cut out from the CIA, became its own entity, and it continues to try and create coups around the world via grants, sending a lot of money over there, other techniques, and that's what they do. And anyway, I'll get into some more of those details in a minute, but phone call with the National Endowment for Democracy VP triggered an institution-wide meltdown at the U.S. government's Regime Change Laboratory. Following the call, the group's founding president privately admitted the fiasco exposed major problems beneath the surface. Leaked emails obtained by the Gray Zone reveal that the organization has since descended into chaos, with 2 senior officials fired due to the fiasco and remaining staff engaged in civil war. Now, this is kind of a funny side point that the 2 sides engaged in civil war are the neocon old guard and a more woke new generation, quote unquote woke, hired to replace them. So inside the NED, as with most organizations across the U.S., there is some push to become more woke, to care more about people's feelings and to not treat people as shitty and things like that. And that would all be fine. I support people caring a little more about other human beings. The problem is that shit is used to cover up. Well, it only becomes shit when it's used to cover this up, but it's used to cover up the fact that this is a regime change organization. It's an office where they try and figure out how to bring down governments via soft power. Soft power, not usually guns, although some of the people they support will have guns. NED wouldn't supply them with the guns, but they might have a gun or two. Anyway, senior NED management is currently in complete disarray, with 2 high-ranking staffers fired due to their handling of the Gray Zone's phone call, and founding president Carl Gershman isolated and marginalized by those who took his place. What began as a bitter dispute over the decision to engage with the Gray Zone ultimately devolved into a full-fledged culture war that pitted the group's neocon founders against its more liberal recent hires, derided by the neocon old guard as woke flakes obsessed with microaggressions. One of the fired NED staffers, neocon Michael Allen, accused his progressive boss of a clear campaign of harassment, marginalization, and victimization, and fretted over her, meaning his boss, allowing NED staff to attend pro-Palestine rallies. So Michael Allen's a big Zionist, and he was upset that some staff were going to pro-Palestine rallies. He was so incensed by his dismissal that he threatened to reveal the details of his firing to the, quote, many mailing lists of key decision makers and opinion formers that I've built and retained over the years. Basically, I'm going to become a whistleblower on what goes on inside the NED if you don't give me a very large settlement, which included a year of, he was asking for a year paid salary. And we don't know whether he got it or not, but the fact that he's been kind of quiet since then means he very well might have, basically, with this threat. But a little more on NED real quick. Since Gershman retired, so the founding head of NED, Ned has undergone a dramatic internal shift. A new generation of ideological milquetoast social progressives have taken the reins of the organization and attempted to align the NED's programming with the diversity politics that animate the Democratic Party. Among those hired in the post-Gershman era was Leslie Ahn, a self-described senior creative communicator who apparently knew very little about the NED when she came on board. And I think it's actually true that she knew very little. I'll get more into that in a minute. In one of her first moves as the organization's vice president of communications, so she was vice president of communications and public engagement, Ahn decided to initiate a phone conversation with the Gray Zone to refute the notion that her employer functioned as a CIA cutout. So I'm going to play a clip of it in just a second. Hilariously, she gets this job. The inside NED, many of them, it appears clear, even possibly the VP of communications, many of them don't exactly understand what the NED is. They do know that they give grants, and they specifically only give grants to a certain side of a population. In Venezuela, the NED would only give grants to the right-wing opposition that wants a U.S. invasion, literally has called the U.S. to invade their country and steal their resources. So, for example, NED, when it comes to Venezuela, is only going to send money down to that right-wing faction. Now, thank you, Sir Edward Ross, for the donation, for the super chat. And by the way, no matter when you're watching this, whether you're watching it live or not, you can throw in a couple bucks by clicking the little thanks or dollar sign or heart, or I don't know what it is, but it's by the comment. And you guys know. But so many of these employees at NED, they know that they send these grants to a certain side of Venezuela. But if you believe, which most Americans do, all of the propaganda that has been fed to us about Venezuela, to stick with this one example, then you think that, well, we're sending money to help get the dictator out, right? That's what we're doing. So if you buy into all the propaganda, then you don't view it as the U.S. trying to crush countries around the world. I hope that makes sense. Maybe I'm over-explaining. Maybe I'm under-explaining. Who knows? But I'll stop there. So it does seem, I know you may just think that she's lying in this phone call, but I'll play a clip for you, and I think you'll see she legit doesn't know what the NAD is, which is kind of amazing. Thank you, NA, for the donation. Solidarity. Biden did a coup in Pakistan. That's true. Imran Khan is in jail because of it, and the military keeps slandering him. It's so good to see netizens step up for the truth. Thank you, NA. And yes, Biden and leaked transcripts have come out showing the U.S.'s involvement in that. It was a lawfare coup. I mean, Imran Khan was also shot. So there were efforts to make it a murder coup, but it was a lawfare coup that got him locked up and removed him from power, and the U.S. was behind it. Okay, so Leslie Hahn decides as her first effort as VP of Communications, she's going to take a new tact for the NED. Rather than ignoring all of these outlets and all these people like you and me who know that NED is a CIA cutout, she's going to do the opposite. They've been ignoring us. They've never spoken to us. I don't think they've called anybody to say, nay, no, we're not CIA cutout. We just love the peoples. They haven't done that. So this was a shift, and they call up Max Blumenthal and Alex Rubenstein. And here's a clip of the phone call. It's truly amazing. Let's see. Did I already highlight it? No, I didn't put. Step one is usually to put it on the screen. That's always a plus.
Hey, who's this? This is Alex Rubenstein and my editor, Max Blumenthal.
I know Alex was curious to know what you were interested in discussing.
Yes. Thank you so much. So we're just, there's been several columns where there seems to be the implication that National Endowment for Democracy is somehow linked to the CIA or part of the CIA, or I forget what the exact language was. It was like a cutout of the CIA. I'm not really even sure what that means. And I just wanted to reach out and ask you where you guys are getting that, because we're not part of the CIA.
We haven't said that you are a part of the CIA. The term cutout refers to specific remarks that have come from two of your founders, one being Alan Weinstein and the other being Carl Gershman, saying that it would be terrible for democratic groups around the world to be seen as subsidized by the CIA. We saw that in the 60s, and that's why it's been discontinued. We have not had the capability of doing this, and that's why the endowment was created. Similar quotes from Alan Weinstein, who said a lot of what we do today was done covertly 25 years ago by the CIA.
Well,
so I'm going to keep playing in a second, but both those quotes show the truth that the CIA realized it looked bad for the CIA to be funding all of these groups seeking coups around the world. And so they needed an organization with a nicer name than Central Intelligence that sounded like it was just helping democracy. And so they get separated from the CIA, but they're a CIA cutout. They're doing the part of the job that used to be CIA's job, and to create coups.
Well, the National Endowment for Democracy was founded under the initiative of CIA Director William Casey. He wrote a letter to Reagan's Attorney General Ed Meese on a small working group to make recommendations to the president on the merits of creating a national endowment in support of free institutions throughout the world. And the NED came to being through a compromise between Bill Casey and Bill Proxmire, who was a senator from Wisconsin. I'm not sure if you know about this, but Proxmire had insisted that the NED be completely firewalled from the CIA. And ultimately, the CIA director, Casey, got Proxmire to compromise and reach an understanding that the Senate would essentially approve any U.S. intelligence involvement with the NED. And, at the time, the NED was sponsoring the American Institute for Free Labor Development, which was absolutely a CIA proxy operating under the auspices of the AFL-CIO. And they helped elect a right-wing military thug in Panama. His name was Nicolas Barletta. He's one of many figures that the NED has helped to bring to power by sponsoring groups that were seeking to overthrow governments the same way that the CIA had done covertly.
I feel like at that point, she should have realized she was outgunned, realized that she doesn't actually have nearly the information that Max and Alex have, and been like, actually, I gotta run. My cat just puked on my dog, and I gotta go. Instead, with a complete lack of knowledge of what she's trying to debate, she thinks she's going to continue to argue with them.
I can give you many examples if you wish.
I mean, I'd love to have all that history and all that background. I mean, that's not how I understand our history to be, and maybe you know more than I do. But that isn't, I mean, you know, Ned is very much not a part of the CIA, not affiliated with the CIA. We don't go out and unseat presidential candidates or those sorts of things. And that's not our role. That's not our purpose.
So, in fact, they do go out and unseat presidential candidates. They just do it via funding opposition groups to create color revolutions. One of the best examples that was successful is Ukraine, right? It was many of these opposition forces were funded by NED. Now, they weren't the ones arming them. That was, you had CIA working in Ukraine as well. So these things often work hand in hand. You have NED funding opposition groups. Another one that was, that I think maybe Max mentions later, is the Hong Kong so-called democracy protests. It's not that there is no protests in Hong Kong. There are, but you've got NED funding groups to try and create often violent, sometimes not violent, but often violent clashes with the government to try and bring down governments. So it is what they do.
So I'm aware of those old quotes. They're very convoluted and they weren't elegantly spoken. And they actually have sort of been around and sort of haunted us for a long time. And it's unfortunate. I think if you read between the lines, what they're saying is the CIA used to fund pro-democratic activities, and that we had a specific, that Ned was going to be separate and different and independent, and we are independent. But I'm really curious to know all the rest of this stuff, because I frankly didn't know it. Like, where would I find this information?
I'm surprised that you don't know it if you're working for an organization. I mean, you should know, and the NED is proud of the fact that it spent nearly $1 million or maybe more to unseat Daniel Ortega and the Sandinistas in the 1990 election in Nicaragua and install a neoliberal Violeta Chamorro. The National Endowment for Democracy proceeded to sponsor, to the tune of over $1 million, NGOs and media organizations in Nicaragua that fueled a violent insurrection in 2018 that has left over 200 people dead, including many Sandinistas I interviewed as a journalist.
So I'll stop it there, and I'll throw, if you want to watch that whole video, it's another 10 or 15 minutes. But if you want to just hold that video, I'll put it in the description as well. But that whole phone call. But so this phone call happens. It gets some traction, and of course, it's the NED trying to refute the fact that they're a CIA cutout while actually having no information. All she could say is the CIA is not walking around. I don't see them in the office here. And it's like, well, then you don't understand what a CIA cutout is. So she just can't refute any of it. And later, like, it just gets worse. Later, she says, I guess I sound stupid here, but we're not CIA. And anyway, and then she starts getting annoyed and snarky and stuff. And, so this comes out, it goes a little viral, and people are talking about it, and it makes the NED look like absolute garbage, and like they're not able to defend this fact, and that they're not CIA, which they are a CIA cutout. And now they have leaked emails. What just came out recently is they've leaked emails that show that inside NED, it's just been catastrophic. I mean, she's lost her job. The one that was on the phone call there she's lost her job. That other guy who was demanding a big severance, he's lost his job. It's just multiple people fired, and the emails are hilarious because it's Gershman screaming about these idiots, this moron who just called the gray zone, and it's pretty unbelievable. But it's good to see the U.S. regime change arm, National Endowment for Democracy, melting down from the inside over their attempt to try and say they're the good guys. No, you're not. Not when you're crushing countries around the world. I regret to inform you. I'll put here's the link to the Gray Zone video. But okay, I am going to, and maybe there'll be more updates. Maybe more people will get fired. Maybe. I'm going to wrap it up here, but I do have live streams 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I did try a later one yesterday, but most of them are at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. I might try another later one soon. Let me know if you prefer the later time. I did it at 8 p.m., but didn't seem to. It seemed like similar number to normal showed up.